Athlete Builder back at it. Got my guy Lucas up in Fort Wayne, and I'm in my library. John, where are you at right now?
I'm actually in Phoenix,
In
Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. So John Diggs today. A few things though to say about John. I've talked to him before a couple times remotely, just getting to know him. Excited to have him on the show, going in a different direction. So college athlete, pro athlete, played football. And if he was going to age himself when he told me he's with the Houston Oilers, and so I know what that means with the old AFC Central, right? So I get that, even though the Oilers are gone, but
Right.
had a little knee problem, had to get reconstructed, and had to rebuild the knee, and then that consequently made him rebuild his career. Gets in the financial world.
Yep.
Fast forward 08, 09, the housing market tanks, has to rebuild himself again, and
Yep.
does so. So now luckily for us, the knee problem, the financial problem with the housing bubble, luckily for us, because now his calling is working with student athletes, but also adults on getting them better. So we're going to get into mapineering, mind mapping, things like that. And
There it is.
mindset is one of our components. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to bring on a subject matter expert, and we're going to get into that one piece of your mindset. So that's why we have John on today. So John, first question:
Yeah.
I know you played football at Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
What was your welcome to college football moment? Like, holy cow, this is real now.
Well, I went to Washington State with two screws in my knee. I
Mm,
actually got a scholarship and was practicing at my high school and blew my knee essentially.
mm.
So I went to Washington State with a cast on. Thank God Dennis Erickson kept my scholarship because that was a big concern, being hurt before actually getting there. But when I went there, in that, with that injury during the first game was the first year of my life of not playing, but just sitting in the stands and watching my teammates play was like, even though I wasn't playing, I was like, yeah, I'm here and I will get out there ASAP kind of
And
deal. But that was the first, and I cried,
oh yeah.
because I realized that dream, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. There is one story though that probably was resonated more, which I just shared in my talk to other high school students, was we was a night game against Stanford. I was my junior season. We were both like 6-1. It was a big game. We were in the tunnel and getting all pumped up. I was the starting free safety, ready to go play, ready to go ball out. My dad was in the stands, and as the band started playing and we started running out the tunnel, I started looking around and I just froze up and started crying again because that was the vision that I had as a kid, was to play in a college football game like that.
Mm.
And I realized that at that moment, I had truly realized my dream of playing college football as a kid. And as funny as it sounds, I was literally while all the guys were running by me in the band playing. I went on to have a great game. I think I was Pac-10 Player of the Week that week, but that was like another standout moment. Like, I realized my dream. That was
Mm.
super cool. Super cool.
So Dennis Erickson, elite level coach,
Hmm.
been around forever. Now
Yeah.
you get picked up NFL team. You played a number of years there, then also finished the last three in Canadians football team. What's your
Hmm.
welcome to the NFL moment? Like, holy cow, this is the next level, and I made it. What's that moment?
Man, that happened. Two that comes to mind immediately was the first one was when I was with the Oilers in camp. True rookie. Um, at the end of camp, as we were going to the locker room, Warren Moon
Boom.
called me over and
Mm-hmm.
asked me to get in the car with him to go get pieces for the team.
Yeah.
And I was just like blown
Yes.
away that, for one, he would ask me,
Right.
of all of the guys there, but just to commune with, at that time, a legend, and I was brand new in the league. That was like truly like felt like, yeah. this is a whole nother level right here. I'm with a legend.
Yes.
Then the second time was when I was with the LA Raiders, when I went into the meeting room for the first time. Just, I was the first one in there. I was always determined to be the first one in the meeting and the last one out. Something my dad told me is always the thing to do. I was the first one in there, and as I'm sitting in there, come sit right next to me was Ronnie Lott, and that was just like an amazing, truly, truly powerful experience. Because if I rewind back, when I was a kid in Los Angeles, I played for what was the East Valley Trojans, Pop Warner football team, and we looked just like USC. We was the East Valley Trojans, and we took a field trip to USC. I'm probably been about 8 or 9 years old,
Mm.
and I remember going to the field, and again, we dressed like little mini Trojans, and we did our little workout routine, all that little stuff that we do at Pop Warner, and these things hitting our pads and stuff. And afterwards, they told us to actually pair with the person that had your number, to walk you through the locker room and all that stuff. And I had 42, and that was
42.
Ronnie Lott's number. And he walked me through the locker room, and I remember that he was a young player at that time. I think he might have been a fresh. He wasn't the Ronnie Lott kind of guy that we knew at SC and all that stuff. But about a month or a week or so later, I remember jumping up and screaming at the TV, "Mom, that was that dude that walked me through. That was that dude that walked me through." And after when I was with the Raiders, I asked Ronnie about that. I said, "You remember that stuff?" And he remembered it. And I was like, "I was that kid you walked around with." And
Wow.
him and forged the bond ever since. And he's been always like a bigger brother to me, where I still call him and, talk to him every now and then and shoot the shit about certain things. But yeah, that was a story that really helped me realize that I made it to I was good enough to get paid to play the game.
Yeah.
It was a different thing. It was good enough to get paid. So yeah, those were some moments that, yeah, I haven't thought about those in a long time, Jim. Thanks for those questions.
Got you. So you got Warren Moon who could sling that ball all over, right? And has one
Yeah.
of the Tom Selleck type mustaches to go along with it. And then Ronnie
A lot
Lott, right? And then Ronnie Lott, whose presence on the field, like no one wants to be with the ball anywhere near him because everyone's
No,
going to get back up, but there's going to be significant
no,
discomfort, significant
no.
pain is coming right at that person. So, man,
Yeah.
what a great two people to start with. So let's say you got drafted a couple weeks ago here in April,
Yeah.
and they call John Diggs, and you're going to my Cleveland Browns because I was born and raised in Cleveland. So sorry, but that's where you're going. What's your walkout song?
I'm addicted to this song called "Knee Deep" by Parliament Funkadelic. So I would probably play that.
All right,
Never
cool.
missing a beat, yeah. Boy, was it neat. Yeah, I think everybody in the crowd would be like,
Well, let's
yeah.
go. One of those tricked out suits, big flashy colors.
Yeah, I wasn't really into the bling bling guy.
All right,
I would have probably been sharp, but not, look at me.
right.
Yeah.
So classic.
Yeah, just a classic, sharp, but not over the top.
Gotcha. I like that. That's better. I identify better with that. Also, I'm not cool enough to know sharp, so it's going to be like a charcoal gray or navy blue. So, man, I have no game there. My kids will remind me of that all the time, right? So, Ronnie Lott wasn't who he was later when you met him, and you're not who you were as a player when you were that age. And
Hmm.
then when you finished in the league, you're a
Hmm.
different person now, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone's evolving. And now we
Hmm.
have this thing called Mapineering Mentor,
Hmm.
mind maps,
Yeah.
high level. Let's start there. What's that all about?
Great, great question. I've always had, I want to say, a business mind to a certain extent, where I was always thinking about being a businessman. So much so, those last 2 years when I was with the Raiders, I actually had listings in Inglewood. I was selling property, playing football. So when I retired, I knew I was going to kind of get into, the real estate game. And as you said in my story, it was, I used that clarity and that vision to build a pretty robust mortgage company. Then when I lost everything, this mind map came into my life, by way of a book, that I didn't buy. Somebody must have given it to me, but just being at the lowest part of my life, I got introduced to this tool called a mind map. And a mind map basically is just a visual information management tool for short, meaning it can take anything that you're thinking about and basically put it in a visual structure like X's and O's of a playbook. Very
Okay.
similar. Very similar to a mind map is very similar to looking at a playbook with X's and O's and diagrams and arrows and things of that nature. And I basically used that and looked at it as my personal playbook to rebuild my life when I was at the lowest point in my life, where I just used it to really structure who I needed to be to run the play I needed to run to transform my life, from having made more money in real estate than I ever did as a professional football player to the mortgage meltdown causing me to be probably broker than I ever been in my life, literally homeless. Um, I needed to reset and rebuild myself, and this mind map came into my life and gave me the visual tool to be able to structure my life to the point of using a football analogy to really understand the kind of offense I want to run, the kind of defense I need to deploy for me to win games.
Okay.
All the way, mind maps helped me break it down all the way to the play I needed to call, the routes I need to run and all of that good stuff. And over the years of rebuilding my life as now one of the top mortgage software developers in the country for the last 15 years, I've been designing the computer infrastructure for mortgage banks. I'm also a computer nerd, probably the coolest computer dude you probably ever meet. But but I use that tool to basically clarify who I am and what I wanted with my life. And I used it just like a football player or a coach would use a playbook to, all right, it's 3rd and 3. What play do I call? And that 3rd and 3 could be Wednesday at 6 o'clock, in the morning. What do I need to do? Every morning I would huddle up and look at my mind map, very, very similar to huddling up and knowing what play you're going to call it, execute that day. So I started using that to really transform my life to, build another $1 million business. And just to bring it full circle real quick is that when COVID hit and we were quarantined, I decided it was a great time for me to start sharing the power of mind mapping and mapping with the world. And since then, I've written 10 books. I've become an international best-selling author. And, I did a TEDx talk. And I know, guys, and anybody listening, that what it allowed me to do what I've done is just because of clarity that a mind map has given me, to really be clear on what I need to do, when I need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's been allowing me to do some pretty cool things in my life, all the way to being here with you guys, man. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, sir. So let's get a little more specific. Is the mind map something I could put on a whiteboard or a bulletin board, or is it on your computer screen, or is it only in your head?
No, absolutely. Well, it's in all three places, actually, because it kind of starts in your head, but most people can simply just grab a blank piece of paper and a pen
Mm.
and start mind mapping. Or now they got so much technology now that you can do it on a computer, you can do it on your phone using an app, a mind mapping app software of some sort. But essentially, it's just taking a blank piece of paper, put it in landscape form, put a circle in the middle, and inside of that circle in the middle is what you want to title this mind map. It's the key of your mind map. Whatever it is you want to brainstorm or mind map, you just put it in the center. Then, as you start to think of key topics and subjects that relate to that, you just add more circles around that center circle. of that main topic. So you have subtopics
Hmm.
surrounding all connecting to the main topic. Then you just start brainstorming each one of those subtopics. And as you start brainstorming those subtopics, you start adding more subtopics, then subtopics, then subtopics. And all of a sudden it starts growing in such a way that it started when this little circle, to where if you really brainstorming and giving some really good thought to all of each one, that keywords and topics that you put on your map, now you got this big tree and this big map of information and details about whatever it is you were mapping about. And it's extremely powerful because you can see the totality of whatever it is you're looking at, but also you can drill down to the minute details of whatever it is you're thinking about. And it shows you all the connections on how things connect and relate to your main topic. And it's data and surveys and research is starting to show that this process is more similar to how our brain works. Our brain works in connections. We have an idea, we're connecting it to other ideas. We learn something new, we're connecting it to things we already know. So we work in connections. So that's where they're finding that mind maps really cause a higher level of mental processing, because it's more in alignment with how we think and process information anyway. You
Gotcha.
know, yeah.
Let's drill in there. I'm gonna do two different routes. One is a professional route, and the other one is an athletic route. So the
Hmm.
first one, so there's, John Diggs, LLC, or entrepreneur or business owner, right?
Hmm.
And so you have your main circle. And then branching off that, you might write author as one of the other circles. And then
Hmm.
around that circle that says author, you said 10 books.
Yep.
So then here's this one component of your business, whether it's author, and then you have your 10 different books, different topics or related topics. You can
Yep.
categorize them, right? But then you
Hmm.
might drill down even further in terms of outline for book, theme
Yep.
for book, publisher for book,
Yep.
days and times of the week when I'm going to start working on writing the book and then editing the book and then getting other people to also edit
Exactly.
the book, right? So, and then you just, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You just schedule that then in your calendar that say on Thursday from 1 to 4 p.m. I'm working on the author dot. So
Yep.
you drill down to that author dot and you have your 10 books and maybe you're working on book number 9
Yep.
and then you
That's
start going
exactly how it
so,
works.
and then you
Yep.
start drilling in there so that it's now on your calendar
Hmm.
to do something with what you're trying to visualize and execute. Is
Yep.
that right? Is that right?
That was a great summation of how it actually works, because you'll go down that wormhole, if you will, and start expanding as it started in author, and all of a sudden you start keep asking yourself questions about what you keep adding to your mind map. Next thing you know, it becomes absolutely clear on who you need to contact, what you need to say, when you need to say it, and all of that stuff. There's no more ambiguity in that, because you see the lineage, on all of the process you need to take to get the result you're trying to get. And that's the beauty of it. You just said it perfect, Jim. Just
Awesome.
on how it you start asking yourself questions, you start going down this wormhole, and you step back and look at your map, and you're like, oh God, Lee, I see the whole there's no question anymore
Gotcha.
about what I need to do. Yep.
So similarly, what we do here at Athlete Builder, my metaphor is a table and like
Hmm.
your dot. So let's say the table is play college sports.
Hmm.
And to play Pee Wee football, you can have a pretty flimsy table. The legs don't need to be that strong for you to
Right.
play Pee Wee, but that can be stronger to play in middle school and then
Yeah.
in high school and college. So those tables a much sturdier table
Yeah.
and it's more intricate and those legs got to be stronger. So we talk about the mind
Yep.
as or the head. So there's your mindset, your knowledge of how to play sport, and then communicating with people as your teammates, and then physically the legs of the table are training, nutrition, recovery.
As you get
Let's
more
talk.
experience and references and things of that nature, I see it. Yep.
So if you're working with an athlete
Hmm.
and he comes to you and says, John, I want to play. I want to play as far as I can play. Maybe he says I want to play in college. Maybe I want to play beyond. Walk me through. I'm the athlete. Walk me through how I'm going to drill down and start my map. Say my initial dot is play college ball, right?
Right.
How do you expand that out
Mm-hmm.
and with those subtopics for that
Mm-hmm.
kid to then help crystallize his approach and his clarity towards attaining that goal?
Good, good. Yeah, great question. There's a couple approaches I may take with that, just depending on the conversation and relationship with the kid. But one that would probably be the easiest to start with is called the 5 W's and an H mind map, right? It's called a mapping exercise that I really teach a lot of students where I would put college in the middle. Then
Hmm.
we would put the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, and the one H, how, around that circle. Now let's talk about who. Who do you need to be to be a college player? Who can you role model who can you emulate? All of the possible who questions that we can come up with as it relates to that college goal. We're going to brainstorm that as much as we can and just detail that out. Then we'll
Mm.
go to what. Same thing. What? What actually do you want to experience? What do you anticipate happening? Just any what question we can have surrounding that goal of being a college player. Same thing with where. Where do you want to play? Where do you need to go to practice to get better? All of the where questions we can come up. Then when do you want to take action towards this goal? When are you planning on playing your first college play? All of the when questions. Then we go to why. Why do you want to play? Which, I tell kids, and I said it several times this weekend, speaking to student athletes, this is probably the most important of them all because any goal or dream worth having or experiencing, there's going to be some good days and there's going to be some bad days. And on them bad days, it's your why that's going to help you push through it. So we'll ask all of the why questions to get them to clarify that. Then we'll step to how. How are you going to do it? How are we going to approach this and things of that nature. So when that mind map is done, there's clearly a roadmap, that this player can follow and use as a GPS or use as a guiding tool to make sure they stand on track
Mhm.
to eventually become a player. Yeah,
Yeah.
that help?
Yes, for sure. Early on in my book and when I work with athletes, we start with why, like you said,
Yeah.
and we make that a big topic, and then a series of subtopics right below it. So they'll say, "Why do you want to play football?" I said, "Man, it'd be fun." Well, why is that
Yeah.
even important to you? And you get
Right.
a little deeper. Well, it'd be fun because, I want to. Some people that I want to hear my name. I want to see it out in the lights. I want to be famous. I want to. All right. Well, why is that
Hmm.
important? Well, no one in my family's ever done that. All right.
Yep.
Well, who cares? Why
Yeah.
is that even
Why is
matter?
that important?
Well, I also
Hmm.
need a scholarship so I can pay for college. Okay. So you get a little deeper in that why. I love the who part because you follow all these other speakers and they'll say like Tony Robbins will say like, success leaves clues.
Yeah.
So I'll ask these kids, well, who do you need to be this? You're the 2025 version of you in
Hmm.
May. What's the June version of you need to look like? What's the July? What's the 2026 version of you need to look like? And they
Yeah.
might not know because they're younger kids, right?
Right.
I
Right.
said,
Right.
okay, let's schedule a time for you to talk to your coach and say, hey, what does a college football player look like? I got
Yeah.
one kid who says he wants to play. He's finishing his sophomore year, has good skills. He's 6 foot, 155.
Mm. Skinny
Hmm,
dude.
skinny dude.
Yeah.
But so we talk about nutrition for sure. But I say, I want you to talk to your coach and say, what does a college coach look at and say, hey, man, that person is exactly what I want. Size, shape, speed, you
Yeah.
name it, power, like hands,
Hmm.
right? Quantify all of that. And I'll give you some other answers too on my end, but let's get some more leverage and
Yeah.
ask your coach. And then I want you to ask him for a referral, someone that played college at your sport. Connect with that person.
Yep.
Or if not, I can connect them. We're going to call that person and say, "Hey, how are you doing? You doing well? Not doing well? What
Right.
what would make you yourself
Hmm.
invaluable to the team?" I said, "Well, if I could do these things, okay,
There it is.
let's train to do those things." So then you just
Yeah.
schedule it out and you start working on those things that you have, those abilities
Hmm.
and those skills. And next thing you know, yeah, I'm a D1 athlete. I'm an all
There it is.
conference, all state athlete because you're doing all the things with all the characteristics
Yeah,
of that product. Hmm.
absolutely. That's powerful.
That
That's
is
super
powerful.
powerful. One thing that I do after like an exercise with that student, I would take them through that 5 W's and H mind
Yeah.
map process, and I would also ask them about the emotions that they will feel having achieved that goal.
Ooh,
What will you feel playing that? Playing that position. Tell me, describe some of those emotions you will feel because I want you to now study your mind map. And now I want you to do what is called intentional dream. I don't
okay.
want you to just fall asleep every night. Stop doing that. When you put down your cell phone and you know you're about to knock out, I need you to go to bed dreaming about your map, feeling the way you're going to feel having achieved that goal. Every night you need to go to bed dreaming about experiencing your goal, not just letting your mind go around. Let's go unconsciously so you start feeling what it's going to be like walking on the field for the first time of 80,000 people, knowing your mom and dad's in the stands, knowing your girlfriend is watching, all your friends at home is watching. What is that going to feel like? And I really get them in that state so they can add those words to their map within that emotional state, which helps them reconnect with that while they're dreaming inside of their imagination, experiencing that. So I kind of try to 10x it like that too.
That's training their subconscious
Mm-hmm.
specifically.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just, man, I wish I had a better
Mm-mm.
mental approach. I wish I'm mentally tougher. I wish I could,
Mm-mm.
so you're training your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say I was doing that and I'm driving to work as a gym owner. And I've been doing that. And let's say I need to work on membership retention. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that. I'm thinking about ways I can do that. The next morning when I wake up, that's going to be in my head a little bit. And when I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving to work, it's going to be in my head a little bit. So I'll be working on it more. And
Mm-hmm.
then if the whole day goes by and I didn't work at all on membership retention, like I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to feel like, oh shoot, I missed something. Like
Yep.
I didn't do something right that day. I didn't
Yep.
work on the main thing. It's going to weigh on me.
Yep.
And so then I'm going to start thinking about that more, which makes me want to act.
Exactly. And also, again, scientifically, Tony Robbins talks about it a lot with neurolinguistic programming and neuroassociative conditioning stuff that he's been teaching. And I've been studying him since the late 90s about all of this stuff that, most of us humans, we operate, on an unconscious level anyway,
Right.
even though we're making conscious choices, but
Sure.
unconsciously is our windows.
Yeah.
That's our operating system. And the only way to really effectively reprogram or, upgrade your unconscious operating system is through going in and meditating practice and future pacing, what they call it, of just visualizing that of which you want inside of a meditation practice, visualization practice. They say is, the most powerful way to reframe and reset those unconscious beliefs that you may have. A lot of people consciously say, yeah, I should go to the gym. I should go to the gym. I should go to the gym. But their unconscious is like, bullshit. You ain't going to no gym.
Right.
But then if they start going in their imagination, start visualizing themselves having lost the weight, feeling great, being in top shape, and start really experiencing, being that fit person that they see, it's going to be a little easier for them to get their fat ass to the gym.
Right.
Excuse-
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, like it or not, you and I and people are going to make the decisions more emotionally than we would like to admit.
yeah.
We would like to say, I'm going to think about everything logically, write it all down, and then make a very specific decision based on what I think. But
Yeah.
that feeling is going to get a lot more weight than we want to admit. And so it's why Tony and other folks want to get people a little wound up because
Mm-hmm.
then that creates movement.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of political people in the commercials to get you really wound up about a serious topic so that it
Yeah.
stirs an emotional feeling to get you to act a certain way. Vote
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
So if
You
you
don't
get the
even have
kid
to be in
wound,
politics. That's
no,
just
you sure
marketing.
don't.
Yeah, it's
That's just
just
marketing.
pure marketing. All commercials now start with "You haven't talked to your mom in 8 days, and she's so sad, and that's why you should use AT&T."
Right. You
You know,
should use AT, right.
it's
And
Verizon. Call your mom before she dies. Kind of stuff.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true because it creates that progress.
That
But
action.
now let's say you don't have anyone leading you through that. You're not watching a commercial.
hmm
You're just like you're able to create that emotional feeling
hmm
yourself
Yep.
specifically and then act. So I think I told you, and Lucas knows that because he's asked me beforehand. I'm doing a swimming event,
Okay.
and it's a big fundraiser. Blah blah blah.
Nice.
The swimming event is with a bunch of Navy SEALs. It's in New York. It's long and painful,
You
and I'm
had me
not
with swimming events, but then you lost me with Navy SEALs. I was
right.
like, oh, I'm not doing that. Them
Yeah,
guys are crazy.
crazy. So I agreed to do it. It's this long event, and so I did a practice swim today, and it was almost 90 minutes of swimming. And so people ask me, "Hey, are you listening to those headphones where you can listen to stuff underwater?" And I thought about getting them, but I know I wouldn't have them on game day, so I haven't really done that yet. And it can be
Right.
a bit boring. 90 minutes of staring at a black line, no getting around it. It is a bit boring.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is, so for parts of it, I'll think about something I want to work on. Maybe it's work or relationship or whatever. But for a
hmm
good chunk of my time in that water, I think about the different components of that event that day because I went and watched it last year and I watched them doing the things, all the
mm
pull-ups, the push-ups, the runs, and the swims in the Hudson River. And I'm thinking about it on that day. So as I'm swimming, I'm thinking about what it's going to take that day to get through it. And so
mm
I'm there for an hour anyways.
Right. Right.
I'm doing it physically. How about
hmm
I also envision how I'm going to be feeling on that day so I can get through it then. And
Nice.
so I just use that tool. Like when you and I talked before about mind mapping, I'm like, well, how can I leverage my time? I'm here in the pool anyways.
Yeah.
Why don't I use that time not just to think about, stroke, stroke, kick, stroke, stroke, kick? It's how about I think about jumping in that water
Yeah.
and
That's
going
good.
towards that first target and hopefully it pans out, right? We'll know August 16th, but I'm working on it.
I'm wishing you well. I'm wishing you well. Well, you got, what is that, 3 months to prep?
Yeah, just under 100 days. Yeah, just a little over 3 months. Yep.
Good luck with that, man. Please keep me posted, man. My my
Mm,
my my soul, my heart, everything is gonna go out to you to try to give you some of that energy you're gonna need to finish and finish strong, sir. So no,
yes.
no, I'm with you every stroke. I'm be,
Thank
even
you.
though I may have a beer in my hand, I'm be
That's
with you
okay.
though.
Yes.
With you though.
I'll send you a link to the event because it's a big fundraiser. Yeah.
Yeah, please, man. Dude,
You know,
please do.
it's kind of interesting. We're talking about the visualization part about things because today we're doing a whole lot of testing at the school I work for, and
hmm
there's this we have this girl that's pretty strong. She's our pound for pound strongest girl in the class, and she's super hard worker and stuff. And we're doing our bench press testing today,
hmm
and she hits her old PR pretty easily,
hmm
and she has this number. She had 130 pounds in her brain that she was wanting to hit,
mm
and I think she hit like 120, and she starts to get a little scared when she gets around new maxes, and she gets kind of, nervous about it, and she kind of locks up a little bit. So today I told her, okay, hey, look, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna sit here on the bench. When it's time to go, you're gonna sit here. I'm gonna put the weight on. You just look forward and you just visualize. I literally word for word, I was like, visualize hitting the lift. Visualize getting on the bar, hitting
hmm
everything right, driving the bar up and hitting it. And I was like, don't worry
hmm
about the weight.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. I'm right here. Nothing's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Um, I put 130 on the bar. I know she can hit it. I just saw what she just did. I know she has it in her. But I know she psychologically psychs herself out sometimes and gets
Yeah.
gets scared at the bar.
hmm
Just told her, hey, don't worry about the weight. Don't look at the weight. Look forward, visualize it. She gets on the bar, take the bar off, spot for her, comes down, hits it, and she's grinding a little bit, pushing through, hits the weight. She gets up, and she looks at the weight. She's like, oh my God. I was like, well, there you go. Just you see it. You had to visualize it. Don't worry about the weight. I know you can do it. there's no reason to be scared. Sometimes you just gotta see it
Yeah.
and do it.
It,
So
it's so
take that
powerful.
scared part out.
Yeah, so it seems like as humans, for some reason, we always unconsciously psych ourselves out or take our power away versus, giving us that power. And, I told that story several times this week, speaking to students in Chicago area, and, how Michael Jordan, is really noted as saying that he played the whole basketball game in his mind in the hotel room the night before the game, the whole game. Hear the squeaks of the shoes, felt the coolness of the arena, sweat dripping down his face, the basketball. I mean, he was there playing the whole game in his mind before the actual game. And my research says that after he beat Cleveland at one time with the last winning game shot. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. But yeah,
I
he
know.
he, he hit that shot, and the reporter asked Mike, Mike, what is it like, before you hit that shot? He said, yeah, I know it's going in. I saw it 1,000 times in my imagination going in. So when people, and I talk to my student athletes about this a lot, when I work them through my big play power mapineering exercises, just strictly for football players, is that when you really get clear on what it is you want to experience, when it's time for you to be in the zone and in that flow or the last second of the game, you're going to be so calm. You're going to be so cool. You're going to be so in the moment because you were mentally played this play or been in this situation so many times before that you're going to be in the right state of mind to execute the big play, that you need to make or want to make just because you saw it 1,000 times in your mind before. And that's, I'm glad you shared that story, Lucas, because I'm hopeful that, that young lady will use that experience for everything else she wants to do in her life. If
Mhm.
that's getting a job, becoming a mother, whatever she wants to do, I hope she remembers, like, wait a minute, if I got to think about hitting that 130 or achieving the goal successfully, first before just putting myself, in a
Yeah.
situation, So that was super cool, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, it's like that's especially when we're I work with I don't work with top athletes. I don't work with elite level for the most
Mm-hmm.
part. I don't work with elite level kids or athletes and stuff. But when we're doing tests, like when we have our power cleans coming up, I tell our kids like when you step on the platform to lift the bar, there is no more thinking.
Yeah.
You got when you're standing off the platform and before you go, you can think about it, visualize it, see yourself doing it. We've done worked on technique all year. We've done practiced this a million times. You've done the work to
Mm-hmm.
set you up to be able to
Mm-hmm.
hit your goal weight that you want, a power clean or back squat.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get on that bar, once you get on the platform, this is your play. I call it this is your play box. This is your
Yep.
play box. This is your
Yep.
think box. Once you step over that line, it's time to
Mm-hmm.
go. Because if you
Yep.
spin up, you can't. You see it all the time with like
Yep.
with high school
Trust
kids and
Trust that you are prepared for this moment you are in. You are here for a reason. Trust yourself. That
mm-hmm.
you are here for a reason, and that reason is for good results. I'm glad to hear you say that because my daughter, she's the number 8 hurdler in the state of Arizona as a sophomore. She runs the 300
Oh,
hurdles, and for when she first started running, I used to have this conversation with her all the time because she'd be like, Dad, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous. And I was like, be careful. And she was like, why? I said, because you feel something in your stomach, right? She said, yeah. And I said, well, that same feeling is probably what all these other kids have too. I said, but some are choosing to call that feeling excited. And if they're
mm-hmm.
calling it excited, it's probably because they're expecting a positive result. If you're calling it nervous, it's because you're scared something may not happen right. So let's start calling that little butterflies that you get before your race. Let's be excited for the moment because that's going to put you in a better position to experience something worth being excited about versus nervous because you scared, kind of deal. And it resonates with her though, and now she don't even use the word nervous anymore. Dad, I'm excited. I'm excited to, get on the field and get on the track kind of deal. So that's super cool, man.
That's great. I like the nervous. equals scared, excited equals
Yeah. Yeah,
prepared, or
same feeling though. That's the crazy thing about it. It's the same feeling, that the same sensation that we feel. Tony Robbins had a very powerful talk about that. It's called "Watch Your TV," your transformational vocabulary. How you
Yes.
choose the label and experience will
Yes.
dictate the experience. And
Yes.
that's where I got that from, is that feeling that you feel, you can choose how you define it, and it's probably
Yeah.
going to determine how you show up, how you perform, and the results you get by just how you chose to describe
Yes.
it.
Words are
man,
important.
that takes me back to I remember I was working at a university a couple years ago, and
Mhm.
I was in a dark place. I was in the a grind. I was, I'll
Right.
just say that. And I remember I was working 19, 20-hour days every day for 10 months. And it
Wow.
got to a point where my body just physically
Breaking
was
down.
just done. And in my
Yeah.
brain, I kept I would wake up, and I remember I would say this every morning. And a lot of times I would have to walk 2 mile, 2 miles there, 2 miles back, whatever. Not that big of a deal, but at 3:30 in the morning with 3 hours of sleep, it's kind of annoying, And I remember
Yeah.
waking up, uh, I'm gonna have a good day. I'm gonna have a good day. I'm gonna have a good day. And I would
Mhm.
say that over and over and over and over the entire walk, the entire
Mhm.
time I was getting ready, um, just because I just had to force myself to,
Yeah.
mentally put myself in a place to where I'm gonna have a good day. Because if I didn't physically, it was always going to be a bad day, And I
Yeah.
did that with a lot of things. When I get into a position where I'm struggling with something, or I'm
Mhm.
physically or mentally in a rut, I like to just tell myself, reinforce over and over and over and over. Maybe
Mhm.
I need to be, hey, I'm gonna, you know think positive today. Today's gonna be a good
Yeah.
day. It could be something else.
Yeah.
Um,
That's powerful, Lucas. Yeah, and
so
that's one of the key things that, again, with mind mapping, because it's taught with mind mapping, you're supposed to put key words only, or short phrases on your mind map. They're not long sentences and paragraphs.
hmm
So this comes into play. So when you are, like we were using that example earlier, Jim, as far as that student wanting to go to college, we're selectively choosing power positive, power charged words on the mind map. So that would always go in that coaching practice, that mentoring practice that I would have. As they throwing out words, I would always have to give them feedback, about is this the right word, that you really want to use to describe that? What word resonates with you a little more? And I may give some suggestions, or we may even Google some words. Does this sound like a word that really kind of get you going? Yeah, let's add that to your mind map, not these words that are just maybe a part of your habitual vocabulary and don't have any emotional context to it. So, now that we got all of these emotional words on the map, in that situation you was in, Lucas, if you map that out, it would be easier for you to take that walk or to do that situation. And now you can close your eyes and actually see your map,
hmm
because it's easy to see the map and all of those words that you want to resonate with, using that visual stimulation to 10x that
yeah.
incantation you were saying. I'm gonna have a good day. And now you're seeing where you put that on your map, and the other keywords associated and connected to having a good day will automatically just start appearing in your mind,
hmm
because you did that map work and all of the words that you connected. Because I would ask you, all right, well, what emotions do you want to experience to have a good day? Or what emotions do you need to experience to have a good day? And now let's add that to your map. So when you saying to yourself, I need to have a good day, next thing you know, it's automatically connected to those emotions, which will help you connect to feeling that way easier, to transform your experience, to put you in a better position to have a good day.
Yeah, a lot of times, this is more of a joke, but a lot of times before I go in, maybe I didn't sleep well, or maybe I'm not feeling good, or I'm feeling real bad, and
Right,
because I gotta go in and coach kids all day,
right, right.
so
A
I
lot
gotta
of
tell
energy.
myself, hey, I am happy. I
Yeah.
gotta go in there and tell myself, I am a happy guy. I am happy. Sometimes I'm driving to work and no music on. I'm like, I am happy. I am
Yeah.
happy. I am
Yeah.
happy. Because I go in there and if I'm not happy, nobody's gonna be happy the entire day. And it's just to have to be self-aware of that, because if you're not, then you're gonna affect probably, in my
Yeah.
case, you're gonna affect 200, 300 kids
Yeah.
a
It
day,
starts
or
to spread. It starts to spread, and
so. And
it's
there's
tough.
times where I haven't always been the happiest. Where I'm in there,
Yeah.
I'm like a little bit like, well, you know, Lucas is in that mood today, so better watch out. So it's
Well, you're
you try
human.
to,
You deserve it every now and then. It's just a
tr
problem when you stay consistent like that, and
yeah,
probably even more importantly, not having a tool to help you reframe that.
right.
Is the thing. Is what I've been learning and teaching with my mind mapping practices is to help people crystallize what they want to do, be, and have, so they can now visualize what they want to
Yeah,
be, do, and have, to ultimately realize what they want to be, do, and have, is kind of like the framework of that I call my mapping practices. And
thank
mapping, by the way, you brought that up before. They have mind mapping. Not a lot of people have heard of mind mapping worldwide. The guy that created mind mapping in the 70s, he unfortunately he died in 2018, and before it can really just take hold. So those who have heard of mind mapping only use it for brainstorming, note taking, and like project management. I've been the only one that I've been told and met that teaches mind mapping more as like a personal development tool, which is why I coined the phrase mapineering, using your imagination to engineer beautiful mind maps, essentially, to love your life more. That's the distinction between mind mapping traditionally and my style of mind mapping, if you will, is called mapineering.
I think moving forward, being in the high school, I definitely think I'm gonna have to take some of the mapineering to the school I work at, because I think that the kids I work with are very visual. They do a really good job with, um, you know, seeing something, and then they can kind
Mhm.
of work from it, and if they can see it and they can practice it. Same thing with a mind map. Instead of putting stuff on a piece of paper where I say, hey, put something on the board, write some words or whatever on the board, it's
Mhm.
hard for them to associate with or try to
Yep.
connect with. But when I put it in a mind map, thinking for a strength and conditioning coach standpoint,
Yep.
I definitely can kind of see how they would look at that. Like, that makes more sense. This
Mhm.
is a more efficient way of doing things, and for them
It
to understand it
resonates.
better.
It resonates. This weekend gave me overwhelming confirmation that the mind mapping message resonates with the youth. With
Hmm.
the visual stimulation that we're all experiencing nowadays, to present them with a visual tool to help them organize, sort, plan, and all that stuff. I'm excited that, this is my mission, my life mission, and I'm excited to howl at the moon and try to impact lives all around the world, man. So if you need any help with any of that, Lucas, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I give you all the information I can to help you. I can even present or virtually or in person, just to cause change. That's my passion, man. A kid asked me that, one of these knucklehead football players. It was funny in the talk. They just, in this big audience and auditorium, all of the football players were on side. So I was over there, gets trying to keep them engaged. And during the Q&A session, one of the players actually asked me, just point and blank, why are you doing this? And I was like, that's a good question. I told him, I said, look, there came a point in my life, and hopefully it'll come a point in your life, that you didn't made all the money you want to make, you didn't travel the world, you didn't done pretty much everything you want to do in your life, and you're trying to find something to be passionate about, and what I found is, my passion is to try to impact kids like you, because I wish I heard what I'm telling you when I was your age. This is more than money, man. This is a passion thing. I want to make a difference. There's nothing I can buy that is more impactful to me than to have a kid come to me and said, you made an impact in my life. You can't buy nothing, then to know that you positively impact someone else. That's why I do this now. And man, it was so amazing because that whole football section, it was knuckleheads at first, but after I said that, and I got a little choked up when I said it too. I don't know where that came from, but all of them was like, yeah, it was all the big rah rah because they realized that, I guess the genuineness, the authenticity in my message, and knowing that I'm really just there to try to help them. Um,
Kids
it,
can
which is
smell that a mile away, that authenticity, and they know when you're being real and when
yeah.
you're not. John, check my thought process on this, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I talk to other folks and I hear them talking about the visualization piece,
Hmm.
and there's value there. There is. Whether
Hmm.
shooting, let's say shooting free throws, visualizing it,
Yep.
but there's still the action component that comes along. So Lucas is walking that lady through the moment of making that bench press, but then she still has to go through and do the things. She
Hmm.
gets set up, goes through the process, struggles, and then hits it. Has to do the things physically. And even though Jordan had played that game in his head, in his mind, all the way through
Hmm.
on shooting the last shot, he had a history of shooting the last shot, and he had practiced shooting shots at the buzzer in practice.
Hmm.
So there's just because you visualize the things, you still got
Hmm.
to do the action to reinforce that. And when you have the harder reps, when you visualize the harder reps,
Hmm.
and then you go ahead and do those harder reps, that's when it really solidifies in your
Yeah.
identity. It's not just one or the other. You can do one or the other and have some success. But once you start doing both, it's not one plus one equals two then. It's one plus one equals like 10, right? It's
Right.
exponential, right? So just
The
check.
action is the period, is the exclamation point to the whole process. I visualized this, I want to do this, and now I took action and experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the drop
Boom.
the mic. That's
Because
it.
people will talk to me because I do speaking as well, and they'll say, "Hey, I've been I I thought I practiced and I thought about the speech, but I got up on stage and I froze." And I said, "Well, did you practice in front of people?" They'll
Right.
say no. They'll say no. So you got some good reps, but
Hmm.
you needed a different kind of rep for you to feel prepared, right?
Right.
So yeah, you did practice. You were better. You would have been worse if you hadn't. You had
Hmm.
visualized it. You would have been worse if you didn't do that. But you needed a harder rep where you're doing it in front of people, where you can
Hmm.
see people kind of like not paying attention. How do you respond? People rolling their eyes. How do you
Right.
respond? Right?
Yep.
Can you
Yep.
so when you add in those kinds of reps in addition to everything else, man, look out, right?
You're unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
Truly unstoppable.
Tell me big ass box.
Yeah.
I know what that means, but for anyone else, and I know I've been keeping you on here for a while, but I want to get this one last topic, and I want to
Yeah.
ask you about big ass box and what's that mean and how do we address
Well,
that?
well, in my TEDx talk that I did, and for anybody watching, if you want to know really the TEDx version of how mind mapping came into my life and how I transformed my life, I talk about this big ass box.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said I was literally homeless, lost my family, lost my career, lost everything, cars, houses, and I was forced to move to my mom's house, I took my mountain bike, my gym bag full of gym clothes, and literally a big ass box full of motivational tapes and CDs and all of that stuff to my mom's house because I know I had to go back and revisit all of those books, Think and Grow Rich, Unlimited
Yep.
Power. So that big ass box was a major part of that presentation because what I learned, that mind map book, the first introduction was a book called the Mind Map book that was in that big ass box. And when I read it, I decided to mind map all of the contents of all of those books inside of that big ass box. I spent 3 months all day, every day. I didn't have a job or anything, all day, every day with big poster boards, mind mapping all of those books, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, all of the
People.
big known books. And so when I did that TEDx talk, I realized that people may not have literally a big ass box that they need to sort out and organize and truly understand, but they do have a big ass brain that could use some sorting out, kind of like
Mm.
what I did with that big ass box. So I wrote a book and created a course called What's in Your Big Ass Box to get people to realize that there's something to be said when people say, I think outside of the box. Basically, when they say thinking outside of the box is basically thinking outside of your current belief systems. And by nature of how mind maps work, like you articulated earlier, Jim, on how you can start with a box called an author, but then you start thinking outside of the box with all of the different possibilities and connections that relate to that central topic in the mind map. Mind maps are innately built to help you think outside of the box, kind of deal, because you start to explore possibilities that you never would have thought about outside of a mind map form. So that book called What's in Your Big Ass Box, it's on Amazon and stuff, is really just to show people how to start not just only thinking outside of the box, but how mind mapping can help you live outside of the box, to where you don't have, when the box is basically limiting, the walls of the box are various forms of limiting beliefs, essentially.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you start to mind map and you start to get comfortable using mind maps, you start to realize at certain points that, wait a minute, there is no big ass box. There ain't no box. Only the box that I choose to jump in.
Right.
And I know if I find myself in a box, I can grab a mind map to get myself out of that box. So that's the big ass box
I love that.
premise.
It's very deliberate. So most people, not most, some people will be like, well, I'm just this way, or this is how I think. Well, this is who I am. I'm stubborn,
No.
right? I'm closed-minded. I'm introverted.
Right.
Yeah, maybe. But if you get around the people that you like a lot, I see you talking all the time. You're quite extroverted then, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of depends. So if you want to be different than what you think you are, here is a very repeatable process where you just put some subcircles on the board, brainstorm some ideas around that circle, explore those, take it out a number of levels of permutations, try that out and see. Try it out and see. So I want to be an author now. I'm going to make this circle about being an author and all the things I know, and I'm going to talk to some other folks about being an author, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But I'm going to come up about being an author and all the different components and say, do I want to do that? It looks like it costs this much money. It looks like it's going to cost this much time, this much research. Do I want to put myself out there? Oh, you know what? I kind of want to do these things. Maybe I want to take over and I want to buy another gym. I want to take over a new gym, right? And I'm going to all right, what's that look like? What are all the components of that? Right? What's that mean? What are all the W's and the H's? So I love that. I love that process there, John.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Let me just end with the I must say that out of all the thousands and thousands of possible mind maps a person can make, there's none more important than the one called the I am mind map. It's just that it's a simple process where you take that map and right in the center you put the words I am. That's what I did. That's what I talk about in my TEDx talk on how I started to map out who I am, who I intend to be. What do I want? What does having health, wealth, success, and happiness truly mean to me at my core? Deep level, what's most important about that? Why is that important? Why is that important? Why is that important? You keep this expanding your I am mind map. Now with this tool, again, I got a book, courses, and all that stuff on that, on my I am project, on how people can really create a mind map on who they are. I always try to start with all of my students, all of my clients, all of my mentees. Let's start there, because we need to start with getting clear on who you are before we start talking about your goals, because you may find that you're going after a goal that's not in alignment with who you really are.
Sure.
And you're going to be like a lot of people that work so hard to do something only to get there and don't find the fulfillment and happiness they thought because they didn't get clear on who they are first.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody, start with an I am mind map build a map to get clear on who you are and who you're intending to be in your life first. Then layer all of the other stuff down, because once you're clear with that, things start to become easier. You know what to make decisions and how to make decisions. And I got I've been teaching this for a while. And just a quick story on my 16-year-old, picking her up all the time. She did her I am mind map a few years ago, just got my kids doing it. But she was talking about this little boy named Andrew, and I'm like, dad trying to, nah, la, la, I don't want to hear nothing about you liking some boys. But after a week or so, she stopped talking about this boy. And I was like, well, what's up with Andrew? And she's like, well, dad, I let him go. I was like, really? Why? She was like, he did not fit on my I am mind map.
Dang.
He did
Dang.
not fit. She was so clear on who she is and what she wants. And that's what I've been finding with adults too, is that when I take them through this process on this I am mind map, they get empowered to make those decisions that they've been procrastinating making, whether it's leaving a bad relationship, leaving a bad job, or not wanting to proactively do something because of fear and uncertainty. Once they get really clear on who they are, it seems like they get empowered to recognize things quicker, red flags quicker,
Sure.
and empowered to make decisions faster because of that certainty and clarity that they can see in a map. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going
Boy,
to take this drug because it's not on my map, kind of deal.
that's a better visual tool than what I did in my book. So one of the sections is I'm asking people on what are their core values? Like, who are you?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I list the 6 that I work towards and the one word that I use to apply all 6. And I encourage them to use those. Like, one's integrity. Like, you're not going to do poorly if that's one of your core values. But I
Hmm.
want them to find their own.
Right.
Because once you have that, so you said so I am a Catholic, or I am an alcoholic, or I am a
Mhm.
football player,
You're
I'm a
making a
college
declaration.
football.
Yeah.
Once you say I am these things, I am disciplined,
Hmm.
then your choices are mostly made for you because those identity words drive
Hmm.
behavior. If
Yep.
I'm disciplined, I'm not up until 1 a.m. on a school night or before a game,
Right.
right? Right.
Right.
So your decisions get made for you because you say I am this. If I say,
Hmm.
hey, I'm a partier, I'm a fraternity partier guy,
Guess what you're gonna do?
that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And
Guess what you're gonna do?
I,
Yeah.
and I know what that's like because I used to do that, right?
Right.
So if you say I am this, and that's who you
Mhm.
are, it simply drives behavior, which all comes down to not what you say or think, but what you actually do. And it's another
Yep.
way of training that subconscious and then learning because you can
Yep.
go a long time. Like, I was in the
Hmm.
financial world till my mid to late 30s. Now
Hmm.
I run a gym and I'm working with adults and student athletes on being better mentally and physically. That is
Hmm.
not a financial world.
Yeah.
I should have
Yeah.
asked myself some of these questions a long time ago
Exactly.
and made some different choices. Man, John, having a great time. I can go all day because this is my favorite thing, getting deep in someone's
Yeah.
psyche. But I want to be respectful. So, what do you listen to when you are training, when you're lifting? You're deadlifting, you're power cleaning, you're walking, you're jogging, whatever. When you're working out, what do you listen to?
Honestly,
Yeah, no, don't lie to me. Yeah, I want the truth.
what I've done is, by way of my I am mind map, I've actually created a motivational audio recording of myself saying incantation words to myself. Kind of like what you were saying, Lucas, I'm having happy days. I'm saying, I am excellent health. I'm extraordinary wealth. I'm enormous success. I'm extreme happiness. And I have myself, this comes out to about maybe 30 minutes or so. And I found some motivational music on YouTube that I recorded myself and layer that motivational music behind it. So I'm
Boom.
listening to this really pumped music and me talking to myself about who I am in the world. I work out in the mornings in my home gym in my garage. So, I just pop that in and as just my morning boost, if you will, of me talking to myself over some inspirational music about who I intend to be during this day. That
Beautiful.
that is God's honest truth. I've been doing it for years and it's weird when I don't do it, But I know when I'm on my Peloton, which I just completed 805 rides on my Peloton. I just saw that this morning. But every time when I'm on my Peloton, I'm just put that on and using that to just you know, I
Get
don't
yourself
listen
ready.
to music. Yeah, I don't listen to music like I used to, you know, in the gym. You know, I'm it's the best time for me. I'm figuring if I'm stimulating and waking up and charging up my body, let me do my mind as well. And both of those two things comes after my morning meditation of me, you know, talking to myself in a recording about, you know, being healthy, wealthy, successful, and happy. So I'm waking up my mind. I'm waking up my spirit first. While before I get out of bed, I put on my headphones on and I'm talking to myself over a nice little melodic morning piano sound of everything I intend to be in my life, to be the best version of myself. I got that clarity with my I am mind map, so I'm talking to myself there. Then I go get my stretch on while I'm watching Get Up with Greenie and them. Then I go in my gym and jump on my Peloton, and bang, I'm consistent,
Going.
consistently pumping myself up. So by the time I come sit here at my desk, yeah, man, you know,
You're good.
I'm kicking ass and taking names, you know, all day. You know, but it's all the athletic, you know, this is all coming from, you know, I really believe each day is like a another play in the game of football. You know, that's all my morning routine is all that pre-game stuff I'm used to doing when I played. You know, most athletes just don't step on the field. You have a routine that you do to get your mind, body, and spirit right to perform at a high level. Just because you don't play anymore doesn't mean you should stop that activity. You know, you should be getting yourself to perform at the highest level, regardless of whatever you're doing. And at the same time, you know, I had that same process, which I learned, you know, about maybe about a year or so ago. Used to have problems shutting my mind off, you know, at night. So I wouldn't be a good sleeper. But then I realized that the same thing I needed to prep myself to get ready to perform at a high level, I needed to create a nice routine to prep myself to rest.
Hmm.
So every night I have a literal consistent routine that I go through of relaxation and just bringing myself completely down. So when
Nice.
it's time for me to shut off, I'm sleeping at a, you know, at a high level, and I've been doing that about a year and a half now, and it's, yeah, I'm getting great sleeps nowadays, which
Love
is,
it.
I needed it.
What's a bucket list adventure you haven't done that you want to do?
Golly, that bucket list is thick. It's a big bucket. It's a big
Just
bucket. But one that comes out of my mind that I haven't done yet, I would like to salsa dance in Colombia. I'm a Latin salsa dancer as well,
all right.
and Colombian
Well,
salsa dance, and they say it's some of the best in the world. So that's a
well,
bucket list item.
Lucas is a line dancer, so you guys got something in common.
Nice, nice.
Do a
What's
little
your,
country swing once in a while.
Country swing is nice. That's very similar to salsa, partner dancing and all that.
Well, you're in Phoenix, right?
Yep,
I
yep.
know. I'm sure Phoenix. Phoenix. How far is that from Scottsdale?
Yeah, well, the Scottsdale is just a suburb of Phoenix.
That's
Yeah,
good. All right. Yeah,
it's big
I
out
have
here.
a
It's big out here, guys.
one of my best friends is from Scottsdale, and they're really big on country swing out there, East
They
Coast
do.
and West Coast stuff. So
It's very big out here, man. I see guys and little kids that are practicing that at In-N-Out Burger in the front. They just working on little patterns and routines and stuff.
I
Yeah,
might I might be out there at some point. Might have to come by and see
hit
how
me
you're
up,
doing.
brother. Hit me up, man. I'm always, you got a friend in me, man, for life. We're
Yeah,
friends for life now. So
perfect.
what's your favorite sports movie?
any given Sunday,
Favorite sport to watch?
basketball.
Favorite athlete to watch? Either, current, retired, whatever, dead,
Favorite
alive.
athlete to watch. Um, Ooh, that's a good one. Who would I say that would be my favorite athlete? Right now, it just pops in my mind. I like watching Patrick Mahomes.
Hmm.
You know, I like Patrick, but
Sure.
then I also like John Jones in the UFC. I'm not opposed to, I mean, almost every basketball team now got some player that just draw dropping, it's like, how the hell did he do that? So, I mean, any basketball team from 𝗟𝗶𝗀𝗀𝘀 to Jokic to, I mean, every team like these games tonight to Jason Tatum. I mean, I love just watching the athletes of basketball. They're the best athletes on the planet to me.
Awesome. Favorite book? Or you got one you can recommend? Because I know you've read a bunch.
Man, Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Think-
I like his Awaken the Giant Within
Awaken
also.
the Giant. Think and Grow Rich is probably my all-time favorite. You know,
Yep. Favorite superhero, and this could be a real life person or it could be fictional.
favorite superhero would be who would be my favorite superhero? That's a good question. I kind of like. God, Lee, who would be my superhero? There's so many great guys out there that I would like. Deadpool came to mind. I like his humor. I like
He's
his
so
comedy,
funny.
but I don't like
Yep.
him getting beat up all the time either. Spider-Man is what my guy. Favorite superhero, I'd probably go with Captain America.
Okay.
I'd
How
probably go with
about how about villain? Again, could be a real
Captain.
person or it
Phil.
could be fictional.
Um, I would say the Joker. I just saw the Joker on the flight home yesterday, and I would say the Joker.
Awesome. Favorite lift?
Pull ups.
Pull-ups. Those are good. Do you have a good quote for us?
A good quote.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I do. I do. I'm just trying to remember right off the top of my mind. Imagine, let me get it for you really quick. This is the one I just put in my presentation by Albert Einstein. Favorite quote is imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions.
Nice. Where can people find you, John?
Outside of johndiggs.com, I'm on all social media platforms. You can always email me at john@johndiggs.com. And I really hope anybody who's touched, moved, and inspired by my Mapineering message and have any questions or, just want some feedback about anything, not to buy anything of any of that. You just want to just chat with me or just get some more information about what I've learned. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My life's mission and passion is really to impact lives, and my message is far outweighs any kind of money. So
Awesome.
if there any way that I can help you love and live your best life, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here for you.
Well, John, we're lucky to have you on today. I'm glad our paths crossed.
Yes, sir.
If anyone wants to reach out to us and ask us questions, it's the same answer every week. Info@athlete-builder.com. Summit is coming up June 7th. There's a digital option, but it's also mostly for people coming in person. And that's on our website, athlete-builder.com. And you'll see it right there on the main page, a box for the summit. Great speakers coming up June 7th. So check that out. Check John out.
Nice.
John, thank you for the gift. Hang on here for a minute or two after we hang up here, but loved having you on. Lucas, nice job today. It was good working with the team, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Good
All
seeing you
right.
guys. Good talking.